Dan introduced several members. There were some members that are not here tonight that I think deserve some recognition in terms of we had parents from teachers from elementary, middle, and high. They were also parents in the districts as well, which added to the richness of the discussion of the committee. The committee also had some members like Bob Maggio from facilities, and that allowed us to see a broader perspective. And so part of that committee's work, even though it's been a lot of time, had a lot of dynamic discussions about viewpoints we've never seen before. And so as we share our recommendations tonight, I think you'll see from the members of the committees that are going to present that you're going to get a really good picture of where we're going with this efficient use of time. Next slide. This is the balanced scorecard Dr. Clemens was wanting to show. I think what it provided for our committee is clarity. And that's what's so great about the balanced scorecard is it gives us clear direction. And so it was easy for us then to focus in on what we're going to investigate and how, and gave the committee that emphasis to do that. And so it kind of will lead to more of the material that you'll hear about tonight. And so we will go to the next slide. This is the purpose statement of the committee, and I think it's important to take a minute just to kind of look at that. As you're reviewing that, what we want to note is that this work, you've heard MSIP 5, you've heard the Common Core, all through the year we've been looking at the challenges that are ahead of us. But one of the important parts of this challenge is how do we use that time with our students in the most effective way? And more importantly, how do we maximize our instructional time? How do we get to that more depth that the Common Core is asking us to do? How do we use this in terms of rigor and relevance and technology? But also as that efficient use of time in our calendar, but the length of our day and the time we have with our students, exposure to our teachers. So that purpose statement kind of gave us a broad sense of where we were going. Next slide. Another helpful tool came from strategic planning. Dr. Clemens mentioned this already, but what I want to say is I think it gave us a lens of discussion. In the past, we've been on scheduling committees. We've had these discussions in the past. What was different about this is strategic planning gave us a better way to address the issues. It wasn't about a schedule. It was about what is best for kids and what do we need to do to make sure our students have the time they need to really prepare for the 21st century. And that, I know people say 21st century, that's a nice catchphrase, but reality is to be college and career ready, we have to have more time with students. And we got to do it within the framework that we have. And so I think strategic planning gave us that piece and it gave us that parameter. And I think Dr. Clemens is absolutely right. What is best for students has to guide what we do. And so as far as efficient use of resources, we have efficient resources in this district. I think we have what we need. I think we also need to look at how do we meet the needs of all students. And that's been a great depth of a discussion that we've had is how do we meet the needs of all students. Next slide. So when we looked at our parameters, there were 4 parameters. One is addressing student performance. And as we heard in the previous discussion, there is room to grow there. And we need to look at what do we need to do differently around student performance, and how do we engage around rigor and relevance, around technology, around literacy, and how do we make sure our students get what they need in order to be productive citizens. That's why we need to really look at our time. And that gets down to the more minutes and the instructional time that we have and making sure we're using that to the best of our ability. But the other part of this was frequency. We had, through our discussions and surveying and research, found that frequency of contact is also an imperative piece. And then we have to look at the alternative needs. Not all learners learn the same way, just as that our schooling needs to meet the needs of all of our students, and what can we do with the efficient use of time to make that happen. Next slide. I just want to take a minute. I mean, they're my folks, so I want to recognize them. I think part of getting into the nuts and bolts of really getting down into talking about how we're going to make this efficient use of time really required our 4 high school principals to really come together and collaborate and move in a direction that could solve this problem. Because in the past, we got hung up on schedules, and we're not really talking about schedules, we're talking about what's best for kids, and they really did a fantastic job of coming together and going in a direction to do that. And that's hard work when you're facing a lot of the complexity of what the high school is about. and they did an incredible job of coming together to do that, and I just want to publicly thank them for their work. But also, I think you're going to hear from tonight some of those ideas that's be part of the recommendation. So I'm going to turn this over to one of our principals and assistant principals at this point.
The recommendation we're bringing to you tonight is about the organizational house structure that we'd like to put in place for the 2013-14 school year at each of the 4 high schools. The house structure means that freshmen can be taught by a group of teachers in the 3 core areas of English language arts, math, science, and designated SPED courses on a daily basis. The recommendation is that the house structure will be for the 9th grade students of the district except for the pre-IB students. Also, the recommendation includes during the 13-14 school year, the committee that you just heard about will look at indicators of the effectiveness of the house concept, and then consideration will be given to other programs and grades as these indicators are evaluated. And I'm going to ask Dr. Britton to go from here.
I'm charged with talking about some of the technical aspects of what does this look like. I'm the master scheduler for Staley, so that was one of my questions is, what does this look like in Power School? What does this look like for a kid? What is the structure like? So next slide. Essentially what we have is the freshmen will take 7 classes, which is what they take now. At each of the schools, they take 7 classes plus, at our school it's called Flex 9 at Staley. At Winnetonka it's called Star 9. They have other classes that is their 8th class. So when a student selects classes, and we're doing that right now, they select 7 classes that they want to take. That's essentially what we will continue to have is 7 classes. However, the structure will be different. And also, as you notice at the bottom, grades 10 through 12 will remain on an 8-block schedule as they always have. 9th grade will have 3 what we call house classes, ELA, math, and science. That will be approximately right at an hour, 57 to 59 minutes, depending on the school. And then 4 block classes that will be like the blocks they have now that will rotate on an every other day basis. So, and the next slide is a graphical representation. I know when we first started doing this, we were talking about it and we were trying to put it in our head, and Gary Miller, actually, who's not here, on a piece of chart paper drew up what it looked like, and everyone was like, oh, now I see what it looks like. Essentially what we've done is we've taken the blocks, we've taken 3 classes, the 3 hourlies into the 2 blocks. So if you look on the left-hand side, a freshman's either going to be an AM hourly student or a PM hourly student. Example 1 would be a freshman who is an AM hourly student. So if you think of an A day being Monday and the B day being Tuesday on a rotating block, on Monday they'll have math, science, and English language arts for an hour each. Then they'll have 2 blocks classes, social studies, world history, and then an elective of their choice. And then on Tuesday, they'll have those same 3 hourly classes in the morning. And then in the afternoon, they'll have their other 2 electives. And that's how the structure will rotate through. Example 2 is a freshman that is a PM hourly. It's exactly the same as the AM. It's just they have it in the afternoon. They have the 4 block electives in the morning that rotate, and then the 3 classes in the 2 in the afternoon that rotate. So they will spend part of their day in this structure and part of their day in the elective block structure that you're more familiar with. So now I'll turn this back over to Dr. Wood.
It's important to share some of the rationale as to why the work we did led us to this point. One of the most important ones is because of the house structure, the students in the house and teachers will gain a net gain, of 45 hours of instruction per year in English language arts, science, and math. And this is in addition, as mentioned previously, to the 2 instructional days that was approved in the 13-14 academic calendar. Another rationale that we spent a lot of time about is centered around the work that we've done this year with the ICLE work of the 3 R's, rigor, relevance, and relationships. The house concept for the 9th grade students will give opportunity to further develop the teacher and student relationships by meeting every day and directly impacts the opportunities for those relationships. The next rationale really addresses a concept about one size does not fit all. Students will still have the flexibility on this schedule to have both the daily classes and the block classes. So there's some flexibility that builds into that so that they will have not one schedule fits every kid. And the last rationale is something that I think all of us as educators really focus on, is that that transition between middle and high school. And this addresses more of that for ninth graders coming in and helping that transition, on the ninth grade level. The next person talking will be Adam Martin, who will be explaining some of the impact on the instructional side.
Good evening. My name is Adam Martin. I'm an English teacher at North Kansas City High School. I'm going to talk briefly about the impacts of teaching in this house concept. Thank you. One of the things that we'll do is increase the time that teachers will have with students in core areas of English, science, and math. And with the mandates coming from Common Core and MSIP 5, the increased time with those students should help us gain some improvement with the students' performance. We will also have an increased frequency with students in the house concept. Allowing daily contact with the students should improve rigor and relevance, in the sense that you'll see the students every day, and thus improve the contact with the students, helping to create those stronger relationships with students and teachers. It will also help a cross-curricular type of teaching between the three core areas that are involved in the house, and really allow for some more in-depth work that goes into that instruction for those students. And finally, I guess again, it allows deeper meaning in that subject area for the students in that house concept. Now to talk a little bit about counseling, Dr. Calder.
Hi, I'm Lynette Calder, and I'm one of the district's counselors. I work at North Kansas City High School. And the first place we start as counselors is with the personal plan of study. The personal plan of study is our students' roadmap to the academic career. We look at data. It's got to be data-driven. Students take interest inventory so they can identify careers of interest to them. And we also tie it to their post-secondary plans and links. Of particular importance to us, and as high school counselors, we certainly feel the weight of MSIP 5. We want to make sure that students are college and career ready for based on the MSIP 5 indicators for that component. This is reviewed annually by students and parents, and it's an individual plan, and it drives course selection. And finally, Desi is somewhat fond of the personal plan of study. I've pulled together a sample personal plan of study, and I tried to think of one of the more complex personal plans of study. As a parent, I want to see how it would impact my student. As a counselor, I want to see how it would impact my caseload. As you can see, this particular student is heavily involved in music and instrumental and vocal music. Those are tough courses to schedule throughout a student's high school career. There's a lot of investment from a parent's perspective as well as the student's perspective. This particular personal plan of study is for a student who wants to become a BSN, an RN. And so there was attention given to not only graduation requirements, but the MSIP 5 college and career ready requirements in ensuring a degree of rigor in the math and science content areas. You'll see that this student is able to get, with 7 courses in their 9th grade year, 8 in each subsequent year, they are fine and able to graduate on time. And because I kind of like tables, this information is presented in a table format. If you look at the North Kansas City College Ready and Gold Medallion diploma goals, the freshman year, 7 credits are possible, and each subsequent year, 8 credits, for a potential credit earning of 31 credits. And you can see how easily students have the capacity to reach their diploma goals within that parameter. We also have students who do have reduced opportunities for credit earning, and that is if they're at CTEC or NCC. Those students are able to get 7 credits their freshman year, 8 their sophomore year, and their junior and senior, because they're off campus, are earning 7 credits. Still, they're able to get a potential of 29 credits, which exceeds that which is required for graduation. Mr. Belden?
I'm Stephen Belden, Director of Pupil Services. And students who have a condition which impacts learning and educational performance, in particular, should benefit from a schedule that provides instruction in the core areas on a daily basis, with frequent contact with the subject matter and the instructor. The board goal to increase the performance of students with disabilities and other risk factors was an ongoing focus for the committee and a focus of many of our discussions as far as those considerations. Most students with disabilities are in general education classes most of the time and receive support services, specialized instruction to support their work, but not replace the core instruction. This plan includes provisions so that students can receive that specialized instruction on an everyday basis, which again, we should see some benefit from.
Each of the high school principals were asked through this process to have discussion with parent stakeholders at each of the different sites. What we agreed to talk about with the stakeholders was getting feedback on the schedule, on the transition that we mentioned from 8th grade to 9th grade, the mobility of the district and all schools utilizing the same structure and the same schedule was important, and also, as mentioned, the MSEP 5 requirements that is up-leveling college and career readiness for us. The groups that we talked to, and it varied a little bit by school, but we were in consensus. We talked to booster clubs, PTSA and PTSA councils, site councils, and also Northtown. I had a conversation with the IB parents. Next is Ms. Paul Guess.
Hello, I'm Paul Guess, teacher at Staley High School, pupil services teacher there, and also the first vice president of North Kansas City NEA. I'm here to talk about the staff and student feedback that came in through this whole process of our committee. Initially, there was a survey early on just to get an idea of where the teachers saw the needs for their curriculum and their classes to be taught and how it would best be delivered. A teacher may be teaching different courses. They may not just teach one course, so they answered a question based upon each course that they taught. And that question was very simple. How often and what duration would you like to teach this class and this curriculum to the students so that it is best beneficial for the students? Based upon that feedback, about 2/3 of those courses that are in the career planning guide that we use, about 2/3 of those, the teachers responded that they'd like to see these kids daily for 60 minutes. And then about another third of them said the current block schedule does support the kids in those classes that they have. Interestingly, a lot of those courses that were in the 2/3 fell into that freshman level that the committee later looked at in developing the house system. Through the Superintendent Student Advisory Council, the same question was posed to the students that were there on that committee. And interestingly enough, a lot of the same courses came up as, yes, these classes would be better on a daily 60-minute time schedule, where other classes would be better on the current block scheduling. So there was a lot of matching with the information that was coming from both groups of people. Throughout the whole process of first semester, Tuesdays that we got together to meet and talk about this, and the time in between as we talked to teachers and got feedback and answered a lot of questions, teachers talked about some of the things that they would really definitely like to continue as part of the discussion as we look at the effective use of student time. One thing is professional development. As some teachers are shifting from a rotating block schedule into a daily, teachers are mentioning that they need that professional development and how to adjust the way that they deliver curriculum, and also deliver and provide feedback for students and parents and everybody that is a stakeholder in the students' education. Also, teachers indicated that the elective courses for a lot of our kids is what keeps our kids coming to school. The kids who are really involved in band, involved in music, involved in woods, involved in these other elective courses, we need to make sure that they don't get lost in the shuffle, that we need to make sure that we provide those opportunities for those kids to connect to the academic environment. Teachers also mentioned that the plan time is very important, as now for those teachers who would be shifting into a daily program with the students, they are seeing more students in a day than they had been under a block schedule. With more students, that requires more feedback time, more grading of papers, more preparation for those lessons, and more delivery of information back to parents. So plan time was something that the teachers mentioned. We need to make sure that we maintain the appropriate amount of plan time to meet the needs of the educational curriculum in place. In addition, administration and technological support is very much needed as we start shifting some of the delivery of instruction from a block schedule to a daily 60-minute schedule. And that, once again, and as was mentioned before, that we need to monitor these changes and see what happens, and not just say we're going to make a change because a change feels good to us. We need to make sure that what we are doing is actually impacting kids and actually making an impact on not just how they're doing on test scores, but is it tying them into the education? Are we getting them where we need to be? Are they college and career ready by the time that they leave our district? Throughout all the discussion of all of that, CTTN has also been in place with a lot of this conversation and have worked out a lot of the issues when it comes to things like plan time and things like that. So the collaborative piece of the Effective Use of Student Time Committee working with CTTN has been very collaborative and very productive, and we've been able to work together to answer any of the questions or concerns that may come up. A lot of the committee members on CTTN are also on this committee, so that certainly helps in that communication. So, next, is Amy St. John.
Hi, I'm Amy St. John, the Director of Data Management, and as mentioned earlier, I spoke to you about a year ago in regard to this topic. We'll switch gears to not necessarily the schedule, but the number of instructional minutes per day, and we will look at a comparison of our current schedule as compared to the proposed 12-minute or 10-minute addition to that schedule. With this, we have area school districts, and the format will be consistent to Park Hill, Liberty, Springfield, ourselves, and Rockwood, and where we fall in that ranking. And as I said before, we'll look first at our current ranking, and then if we were to add those additional minutes and where we would fall into that. In this first slide, you see that our high schools are currently in the 4th slot with 6 hours and 55 minutes as compared to our proposal, which would increase us to the 2nd place, which is okay, I guess, just shy of 1 minute there, but that would put us right behind Park Hill if we were to add those 12 minutes to the schedule. We'll switch just slightly to a 10-minute proposal for middle school and elementary, and that is based upon a transportation constraint. High schools will be able to add those minutes before and after school, whereas middle school and elementary would not be able to do the same. So it's a 10-minute proposal for those. We too are in the 4th slot with our middle school at 6 hours and 50 minutes as compared to the proposal, which would put us into the 2nd slot at an even 7 hours. This is talking about bell to bell to be accurate here and number of instructional minutes. And then finally, when we look at the elementary proposal, we are currently in the last slot there, tied with Springfield at 6 hours and 45 minutes. But with the proposal of an additional 10 minutes, it would move us into the same slot as Park Hill with the 6 hours and 55 minutes for our elementary students. In summary, this would add an approximate 36 hours to our overall instructional number of minutes for our students, and we are pleased to bring this recommendation to you as we know that that was something that was of a concern to you about a year ago. So I would like next to turn it over to Denise Ash.
Hi, I'm Denise Ash, North Kansas City NEA president and teacher at Newmark Middle School, and I would like to speak to the addition of elementary early release. CTTN has had a subcommittee for many years. I'd said about 40 years earlier. And this committee was formed to take a look at the use of plan time at the elementary level and look for ways to provide more plan to our elementary teachers. When we implemented the PLTs about 3 years ago, it was particularly challenging because of the schedules in the elementary schools. So it's difficult to find time for grade levels to collaborate. And it's crucial for them to have that time because they need to work with the teachers on their level. And so as those demands have increased, and now as we're looking forward to the MSEP 5 standards and meeting that criteria, and also with the implementation of the balanced literacy plan this year, it has put even more, I should say, requirements on elementary teachers to meet those demands, and they need that time to be able to collaborate. So early release for elementary would help to provide that time for them to collaborate, as well as provide some equity and consistency throughout the district. As you know, middle school and high school have had have had early release for several years now. So we would like to propose that along with our plan. Thank you.
The committee is committed to sticking together and sticking together to make sure that we continue to study the impact of a ninth grade house, if indeed that is done today. We also want to take a look at other time utilization issues, all the way from kindergarten through 12th grade. There are other areas that we'd like to address and continue to push. We think there's some more efficiencies there. You're going to hear a lot about professional development after this presentation, but there are some needs out there to use that professional development in a way to make us more efficient, and we're going to make that happen. And in closing, I would just remind the Board of Education, we're asking for 3 things today: 12 minutes at the high school, 10 minutes at elementary and middle schools, the implementation of a house concept for freshmen next year, and a 35-minute early release to our elementary. And with that, the committee very much appreciates your time and consideration for the things brought forward.